used to walk through the streets of Fort Worth, Texas, preaching about redemption. A man who once called himself a voice for lost black youth, warning them not to follow the same violent path he took as a teenager behind bars. But somewhere between the speeches and the spotlight, something changed. The same voice that once spoke against chaos became the sound of it. His name is Charleston White, a man who started as a reformer and turned into the storm he claimed to fight. When a camera is always on, and attention becomes the paycheck, how long before the message starts chasing the messenger? In a world where controversy sells faster than truth, what happens when your words stop being just words and start coming back for you? Before Charleston White became a name trending on social media, he was just another kid growing up in the rough corners of Fort Worth, Texas. The air was heavy with sirens and summer heat, the kind that made boys grow up too fast. Violence wasn't a choice, it was a language everyone understood. He was barely a teenager when he fell into the kind of trouble that doesn't forgive. A night gone wrong, a young man lost his life, and Charleston found himself behind bars, staring at years that felt like a lifetime. In the silence of that cell, he said he found purpose, or at least, he learned how pain can sound like truth. When he walked out, older but still restless, he spoke of change. He wanted to save the same kind of kids who once stood beside him with empty hands and angry eyes. He went to schools, community centers, churches, anywhere that would let him tell his story. And for a while, it worked. People listened. They believed him. They wanted to believe that redemption was real. At first, Charleston's story sounded like redemption in motion. He spoke with the rhythm of a man who had seen death and wanted life to mean something. He warned young men about gang life, about chasing an image built on pain. And when he talked, it didn't sound like a lecture, it sounded like experience, like scars turned into scripture. In Texas, his name began to circle around local radio shows and youth programs. Reporters called him a former inmate turned activist. Parents called him hope. He stood on small stages with cheap microphones and big dreams, telling anyone who'd listen that the streets don't love you back. But even in those early days, fame had a way of whispering. Cameras followed him more than crowds did. The applause after his speeches lasted longer than the silence that came after. Somewhere deep down, he could feel that attention was its own kind of drug, and for a man who once chased danger, it felt hauntingly familiar. That was the moment the seed of contradiction began to grow. The internet gave Charleston White something the streets never could: an audience that didn't look away. His fiery words, raw and unfiltered, started echoing through YouTube clips and Instagram lives. He called out rappers for glorifying violence, for turning tragedy into entertainment. People loved it. They shared his videos like gospel and called him brave for saying what others were too scared to. For the first time, Charleston wasn't speaking to a classroom of 50 kids. He was speaking to millions. His message, once meant for redemption, now had a stage, a rhythm, and a fan base. He dressed sharper, spoke louder, smiled wider. The same man who once said, "Fame ain't freedom," started chasing both with equal hunger. The irony was easy to miss at first. After all, the louder he got, the more people listened. But slowly, the fire that once burned for the community began to burn the community. Charleston's videos weren't just speeches anymore. They were performances, the kind that needed conflict to survive. With every interview and every viral clip, Charleston's message grew sharper and darker. What started as criticism of hip-hop culture turned into personal attacks. He mocked fallen rappers, disrespected grieving mothers, and laughed at the same pain he once claimed to heal. He wasn't the preacher anymore, he was the spectacle. And in the digital age, spectacle pays well. But social media fame is a house made of glass, and Charleston kept throwing stones from the inside. Each rant earned him followers and enemies in equal measure. He began losing his platforms, banned from YouTube, suspended from Instagram, but that only fed the myth. Fans called him uncensored, real, fearless. In truth, he was trapped in his own performance. The man who used to warn others about chasing the wrong dreams had become his own cautionary tale. By then, Charleston White wasn't just known for what he said. He was known for who he provoked. It happened in Memphis, a city known for music, struggle, and ghosts that never leave. Charleston White was there for another live event, the kind he depended on now that most of his online platforms had been shut down. The stage lights were smaller, the laughter thinner, but the money still came. Then, one day, a stranger recognized him on the street, phone in hand, camera rolling. "Charleston White, you, the GOAT," the man shouted, his tone hovering somewhere between admiration and threat. Charleston laughed nervously, trying to play along. But when the stranger got too close, the mask cracked, fear replaced the smirk. He tried to walk away, asking for help. His voice caught between pride and panic. The video spread within hours. Some people mocked him. Others said it was karma. But behind the viral clip was a man realizing that the internet doesn't turn off. When you log out, it follows you. For years, he built his fame on confrontation. Now, Confrontation had found him. The clip of Charleston running from that encounter became one of the most shared videos online. Memes were made, reactions filmed, and thousands of comments poured in. The man who once mocked others for being weak was now the punchline. But beneath the noise was something darker, a warning. For content creators, fame has no boundaries anymore. People recognize you in airports, gas stations, foreign countries. You don't know if it's love or hate until it's too late. Charleston used to say he wasn't afraid of anyone. But fear doesn't ask for permission, it just shows up. That night in Memphis wasn't just humiliation. It was exposure. It showed how fragile the line is between performance and reality, between control and chaos, between talking about danger and living in it. And as Charleston faced the backlash, the ridicule, the threats, the endless cycle of outrage, it became clear that the real cost of fame isn't losing followers. It's losing the silence that used to keep you safe. In America, controversy is a form of currency, and Charleston White had become one of its loudest traders. When the Memphis video hit, news outlets framed it as poetic justice. Talk shows debated whether he deserved it. Commentators called it the fall of internet arrogance. But deeper than the gossip was a national unease, the growing realization that digital fame had broken through the fourth wall. Once, celebrities lived behind velvet ropes and camera flashes. Now, they walk the same streets as their critics. Face to face, phone to phone. Charleston's story echoed far beyond Fort Worth or Memphis. It became a reflection of the new American paradox. We crave authenticity, but we reward outrage. We say we hate chaos, yet we share it until it trends. And in that loop of clicks and comments, Charleston wasn't alone. He was a symptom of a culture that confuses attention with respect and fame with safety. Around the world, the story felt familiar. In London, a streamer was attacked during a live broadcast. In Brazil, an influencer lost his life after taunting local gangs online. And in America, the birthplace of social media fame, each scandal felt like another warning no one wanted to hear. The public fascination with downfall isn't new, but the speed of it is. It used to take years for a reputation to crumble. Now, it takes seconds and a viral clip. Charleston White's name was just the latest headline in a pattern that keeps repeating, creators building empires on outrage, then collapsing under its weight. In the end, Charleston's story wasn't just about one man. It was about a generation trying to find meaning in a world where every opinion is a performance, where the camera never blinks and the crowd never leaves. And perhaps that's the tragedy of the digital age. We've all become characters in our own show, but only a few realized when the curtain has already fallen. Charleston White's rise and fall isn't just a story about fame, it's a mirror. A reflection of how easily good intentions can turn into spectacle, and how the need to be seen can outgrow the need to be understood. For a while, he gave people hope. He spoke to those who came from nothing, those who believed redemption was possible even after the worst mistakes. But as the noise grew louder, that hope got buried under the weight of performance. His voice, once about healing, became a soundtrack to division. And yet, behind the chaos, there's still a lesson worth holding on to. The same streets that raised Charleston, the same pain that shaped him, also showed us what happens when we forget that the internet never forgets. His downfall is not just his alone, it's a cautionary echo for anyone chasing validation through a screen. Maybe, in the quiet after the scandal, that's where redemption begins again. Fame can build walls, but it also strips them away. In the end, Charleston White stood where every loud voice eventually finds itself alone, face to face with the echo of his own words. The same audience that once cheered now watches in silence, waiting to see if he'll rise again or disappear into the noise. But this story isn't about punishment. It's about perspective. About remembering that redemption doesn't end when the spotlight fades, it begins there. Every person who's ever lost themselves chasing attention still has the chance to turn back, to speak with truth instead of anger, to connect instead of divide. Because in the end, words don't die online. They live in the people who hear them. If this story made you think twice about the cost of fame and the power of words, stay with us here on The Celebrity Black, where we tell stories that remind us not just who they are, but who we are.